A ring of ripples is generated when a stone is thrown into water. Several rings of ripples are generated when several stones are thrown into water. But just one ring of ripples is generated when 10 stones are thrown into water within 1 second. It is about frequency.
Traditional concept of teachers is that teaching is a necessary step for learning. It is incorrectly assumed that teaching is more important than learning. We know children can learn eating and sleeping without being taught. However, we believe every ounce of teaching can lead to learning. Sherbet powder is a mix of baking soda and citric acid. When it is mixed with water in your mouth, an endothermic reaction occurs, taking heat energy from your mouth and making it feel cooler. This process is endothermic, taking heat energy from the surroundings and cooling the injured part of your body. In this way, the cold pack acts as an ice pack. The scientists told the teacher that they had selected a group of high IQ students. The teacher assumed that these students were chosen based on an IQ test. In reality, the students were selected at random. However, their performance turned out to be outstanding years later.
Researchers find proteins can regulate plant growth. They can help plant roots adapt to climate. Understanding this process helps researchers find that some grains can live in drought. In the future, this can be applied to crops across the world so they can adapt to drought.
Swiss engineer George de Mestral once returned from a hike with his dog and found many burrs clinging tightly to his trousers and the dog's fur. He noticed the burrs were covered with tiny hooks that could latch onto fabric loops and fur firmly. This natural mechanism inspired him to create Velcro, a fastener with hooks on one side and soft loops on the other. He named the invention Velcro, combining the French words velours, velvet, and crochet, hook, to reflect its structure. However, their performance turned out to be outstanding years later. Hip-hop emerged as a reaction to the gang culture and violence of the South Bronx in the 1970s and daily. Experiences of poverty, racism, exclusion, crime, violence, and neglect. It necessarily embodies and values resilience, understanding, community, and social justice. Without these, hip-hop culture would never have been, and it is because these values remain at its core that hip-hop is such a powerful agent of positive social change around the world. Yet, the hip hop project is not yet free from these difficult circumstances.
You need to give 4 weeks' notice before you intend to ask for a leave. Upon returning, you will be assigned to the previous position if you leave for 60 days or less than 60 days. If you leave for more than 60 days, you will be put in a comparable position. Employees should have same wage and benefits.
ID is required to open a bank account. You can deposit money into the new account. If you want to withdraw money, you can go to the ATM. Withdrawing money means to remove money from a bank account. To face growth of trade, it is deemed necessary to remedy this lack of adequate currency.
Some students say that they need complete quiet to read and study. Others study best in crowded, noisy rooms because the noise actually helps them concentrate. The point is, you should know the level of noise that is optimal for your own studying. However, one general rule for all students is that the television seems to be more of a distraction than music or other background noise, so leave the TV off when you are reading or studying. Also, don't let yourself distracted by computer games, email, or internet surfing.
So now that you've completed the research project, what do? I know you won't want to hear this, but your work is still far from done. In fact, this final stage, writing up your research, may be one of the most difficult. Developing a good, effective, and concise report is an art form in itself. And in many research projects, you will need to write multiple reports that present the results at different levels of detail for different audiences.
Researchers need to understand why different forms of locomotion evolved. Long-held assumptions, such as the need for energy efficiency, have already been overturned. Similarly, legged robots struggle to deploy different gaits, just as roboticists struggle to enumerate them. But variation of movement is important too. Such an ankle brace holds you back if you try to skip, gallop, or skitter.
Over time, fashion and people's tastes change. Such changes affect the demand for products and services. Changes in work patterns tend to mean that fewer families sit down in the evening for a traditionally produced family meal, often because of lack of time. Consequently, people are now more likely to buy takeaway meals or convenience food, as opposed to ingredients for meals that take time to prepare. In contrast, people now tend to spend more time shopping and are therefore more likely to spend time relaxing in a coffee shop or restaurant while on a shopping trip.
Some psychologists believe that independent, peer-reviewed research in the decades since the MBTI was devised has provided something better than Myers-Briggs. They champion the notion of the Big Five personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Of these, only one trait is closely shared with the MBTI: extroversion. Myers-Briggs does not focus on neuroticism or indeed any similarly negative trait, which may point to one of the reasons why the criticisms lobbed at the test by modern science have yet to undermine its popularity. As Adam Grant says, going around telling people that they're neurotic and disagreeable will not win you any friends.
O'Keeffe never formally recorded her theories about art. She did, however, leave a long trail of interviews and letters that reveal how she approached her painting practice and the rituals, experiences, and environments that inspired her. Correspondence with her husband, photographer Alfred Stieglitz in particular, offers a raw, honest glimpse into O'Keeffe's creative mind. The two exchanged 25,000 pages of letters between 1915 and 1946, during which time she found her voice as an artist, first through her flower paintings and later through landscapes and surrealistic still lifes inspired by her mountainous, skull-studded surroundings in New Mexico.
The global market for electrical and electronic equipment continues to expand, while the lifespan of many products becomes shorter. The current global production of e-waste is estimated to be 20 to 25 million tons per year, with most e-waste being produced in Europe, the United States, and Australasia. In Europe, e-waste is increasing at 3 to 5% a year, almost 3 times faster than the total waste stream. Developing countries are also expected to triple their e-waste production over the next 5 years. Bitcoin is an online money. That's to say, you need to download mobile phone app to use such money. With above done, it generates a Bitcoin address. This address can only be used once.
Your first draft is complete, but your paper is far from finished. The next step is to revise your paper, strengthen the content. Start this at least a week before your paper is due. In fact, you don't need to wait until you have a complete first draft to start revising. You can revise individual paragraphs as you finish them as well.
We know very little about wild pandas because they are so rare and live in almost impenetrable forest. But in 2011, Vanessa Hull of Michigan State University and her colleagues were given permission to attach GPS tracking collars to 5 pandas in the Wolong National Nature Reserve in China. The collars transmitted each animal's position every 4 hours for up to 2 years. The team found that the home ranges of individual pandas overlapped, and on a few occasions, two animals spent several weeks in close proximity. Sometimes the pandas were within or meters of each other, which suggests the pandas were in direct interaction, Hall says. Australia's native plants and animals adapted to life on an isolated continent over millions of years. Since European settlement, they have had to compete with a range of introduced animals for habitat, food and shelter. Some have also had to face new predators. These new pressures have also caused a major impact on our country's soil and waterways, and on its native plants and animals.
We live in an age of unprecedented opportunity. With ambition, drive, and talent, you can rise to the top of your chosen profession regardless of where you started out. But with opportunity comes responsibility. Companies today aren't managing their knowledge workers' careers. Instead, you must be your own chief executive officer. That means it's up to you to carve out your place in the world and know when to change course.
To gauge optimism and pessimism, the researchers set up an experiment involving 22 calves. Before they started the experiment, they trained the calves to understand which of their choices would lead to a reward. In the training, each calf entered a SM all-or pen and found a W all-or with 5 holes arranged in a horizontal line, 2.5 feet apart. The hole at one end contained milk from a bottle, while the hole at the opposite end contained only an empty bottle and delivered a puff of air in calves' faces. The calves learned quickly which side of the pen held the milk reward.
Many students sit in a tutorial week after week without saying anything. Why is that? Maybe they do not know the purpose of a tutorial. They think it is like a SML lecture where the tutor gives them information. Even if students do know what a tutorial is for, there can be other reasons why they keep quiet.
Fibers suitable for clothing have been made for the first time from the wheat protein gluten. The fibers are as strong and soft as wool and silk. However, they are 30 times cheaper. Narendra Reddy and Yiki Yang, who produced the fibers at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. He says that because they are biodegradable, they might be used in biomedical applications such as surgical sutures.
Vision and echolocation have many features in common. One narrow range of radiation, light in the case of vision, ultrasounds in the case of echolocation, provides information relevant to a wide variety of cognitive and practical goals. Why then is vision so common and echolocation so rare? Because in most environments, vision is much more effective. Echolocation is adaptive only in an ecological niche where vision is impossible or badly impaired, for instance when dwelling in caves and hunting at night as bats do.
Most European countries are concerned about gender inequalities in education. However, the comprehensiveness of legislative and policy frameworks differs widely. On the one hand, they differ concerning the degree to which gender equality concepts are embedded in various legislative acts. On the other hand, they can frame gender equality in different ways, focusing on one or more of the various concepts that are associated with this term.
Mechanical engineering student Yi Tan is spending the first semester of this year studying at the University of California, Berkeley, as part of the Monash Abroad program. Ne Tan, an international student from Shanghai, China, began her Monash journey at Monash College in October 2006. There she completed a diploma that enabled her to enter Monash University as a second-year student. Now in her third year of study, the Monash Abroad program will see her complete 4 units of study in the US before returning to Australia in May 2009.
Cameras help autonomous vehicles read street signs and the color of traffic lights. But LiDARs, aka light detection and ranging systems, do the important work of sensing and helping cars avoid obstacles, whether that's a fallen tree, drunk driver, or a child running out into the road. Now, a startup called Luminar Technologies Incorporated is unveiling a high-resolution LiDAR sensor that was 5 years in the making. The startup, which has raised $36 million in seed stage funding so far, built its LiDAR systems from scratch.
University of Otago Centre for International Health co-directors, Professor Philip Hill and Professor John Crump, share a view that global health is a multidisciplinary activity. In their work, from Tanzania to the Gambia, from Myanmar to Indonesia and beyond, they tap into a wide range of expertise from across the university, including clinicians, microbiologists and molecular microbiologists, public health experts, economists and mathematicians. They have also forged relationships and collaborations with research and aid agencies around the world. For the past 7 years, Professor Philip Hill has been part of a collaborative tuberculosis research project in Indonesia with the University of Pajajaran in Bandung, West Java, undertaking European Commission-funded research into the causative links between infectious and non-communicable diseases, which in this case are tuberculosis, TB, and diabetes mellitus. International economics, theory and policy is a proven approach in which each half of the book leads with an intuitive introduction to theory and follows with self-contained chapters to cover key policy applications. The 8th edition integrates the latest research, data, and policy in hot topics such as outsourcing, economic geography, trade and environment, financial derivatives, the subprime crisis, and China's exchange rate policies. New for the 8th edition, all end-of-chapter problems are integrated into My Econ Lab, the online assessment and tutorial system that accompanies the text. Students get instant, targeted feedback and instructors can encourage practice without needing to grade work by hand. For more information, visit My Econ Lab.
Early in 1938, Mario de Andrade, the municipal secretary of culture here, dispatched a 4-member folklore research mission to the northeastern hinterlands of Brazil on a similar mission. His intention was to record as much music as possible, as quickly as possible, before encroaching influences like radio and cinema began transforming the region's distinctive culture. Traveling by truck, horse, and donkey, they recorded whoever and whatever seemed to be interesting: piano carriers, cowboys, beggars, voodoo priests, quarry workers, fishermen, dance troupes, and even children at play. But the Brazilian mission's collection ended up languishing in vaults here.
It was there that Rosa Parks, an African-American woman, refused to vacate her seat in the middle of the bus so that a white man could sit in her place. She was arrested for her civil disobedience. Parks' arrest, a coordinated tactic meant to spark a grassroots movement, succeeded in catalyzing the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks was chosen by King as the face for his campaign because of Parks' good standing with the community, her employment, and her marital status. In many ways, the Montgomery bus boycott kicked off a national struggle to eliminate national discrimination, with King leading the way and ultimately become the nation's racial equality movement.
Historical records, coins, and other date-bearing objects can help if they exist. But even prehistoric sites contain records written in nature's hand. The series of strata in an archaeological dig enables an excavator to date recovered objects relatively, if not absolutely. However, when archaeologists want to know the absolute date of a site, they can often go beyond simple stratigraphy. For example, tree rings, dendrochronology, literally tree time, dates wooden artifacts by matching their ring patterns to known records, which, in some areas of the world, span several thousand years.